Hello and welcome to this lecture for CPI 111. Oh, finally we're getting really deeply into GameMaker. Up until this point, all the assignments that we've done in class have made use of a really great drag and drop system for creating events and then the actions that go with those events inside the games that you're building. You can actually do an incredible amount using that development system in GameMaker. However, there is an alternative to using that system that is initially a little more challenging if you are unfamiliar with scripting or programming, but it's incredibly powerful and incredibly flexible once you get over that initial shock of a different way of creating interactivity in your game. So let's get in and have an introduction to GML, GameMaker language. We'll learn a bit about it, and we'll go in and play with it a bit inside GameMaker. If you are a computer science student and you've already taken programming classes, what you're going to see here is going to look very familiar. But if you're not, we've got lots of students in CPI 111 who are not in computer science or in any degree that has any kind of programming. Hang in there and we'll go through, and you'll find that it's actually not that hard and can be a lot of fun. So, with the GML, what we're going to do to create interactivity in our game is step away from the drag and drop system of events and actions, and instead we're going to write scripts. So what is a script? Script is simply some written text that defines tasks that you want to perform through the use of functions. It's a sort of a different way to do creation and execution of actions and events that you want to have happen in GameMaker. To give you a sense of what it looks like to write a script in GML in GameMaker, let's jump right in and try it out. What I'd like you to do is open up GameMaker if you don't have it open already. And we're going to write our very first script. So open up GameMaker, and I want you to create a script. So come up to the toolbar, click on the Create a Script button, and this will open up your script editor. Here you can give your script a name, just like we name all of the other objects that we create in GameMaker, and in fact I'll use the same kind of naming scheme to help identify what type of thing I'm creating. So I'm calling it scr_hello world. I'm going to come into my script and I'm going to type in an open brace. When you are writing a script and creating or listing a series of things that you want to happen inside that script, you need to include those things inside an open brace and a close brace. Then between these you can type in things that you want GameMaker to do. And something kind of neat is that you can, as you start typing the name of a specific action or function that you're going to run inside GameMaker, if you start typing along and pause, the GameMaker will help you out by suggesting the name of functions that are built in to GML. So we're going to do a show message. So if I start typing show message, you'll see that I get this pop-up window that lets me select what it is I want to type in, so I don't have to type the whole thing in. Alright, so I'm using the built-in function show message, which is going to cause a message box to appear on the screen. Works exactly the same way as it did when we did the drag and drop system. You remember we had an action, a show message action, and we just dragged that icon over, and then we typed in what we wanted the message box to say. So we're doing the same thing here. We're just typing it into this script. So It looks a little different though. At the beginning and end of the whole script, we have these braces, and then when I have a function, this show message function, if I want to give it some information about some parameter associated with this function, then I need to include parentheses, open and close parentheses. And more than that, if in this case I want to show a piece of text, to let GameMaker know that I'm showing text, I need to include single quotes before and after the text. And last but not least, if I'm finished with a given hunk of code inside my script, then I need to include a semicolon at the end of it. So that's our entire script for our first one. So I'll save that. Then I'm going to create a new object, and this will look familiar now. I'm going to create a controller object, and I'm still going to use my drag and drop system to add an event. And my event is going to be to have a key press event, and we'll do a key press space event. But for our action, instead of just dragging something, one of the pre-built actions in, we're going to use an execute script event. And if you look down on the control tab and then come down to the code section, you can execute code, execute script, which we're going to do, and then comment, which we've been doing previously. So I'll drag this over to execute a script, and then I can find that script from the drop-down list. And then later on, we can actually pass things to the script. We're not going to do that yet, but we'll get into this a little bit later. Well, now, just like every other project we've done in the past, we've got an object, and we have an event, and we've got an action. This time it's a script that we're going to run. We don't have a room yet for that all to take place in, so I'm going to create a room. And I'll give it some name. Now, call it room hello. And then I need to add my object controller to it somewhere. And I can save it and run it. Here we have the least interesting looking game of all time. If I press my space bar though, then I get this message box that shows up, says hello world, and if I click it, it closes. I can hit space again and open it up. So let's put some vocabulary on what it was we just created when we made that script. So I've got my hello world script open again. It consists of a single statement, and a statement consists of a function like show message followed by an argument like hello world. Those things put together are one statement in GML. Now let's talk a little bit about variables. Now we've worked with variables lots of times already in our projects. We use the built-in variables like lives and health and so on. And then we've also created our own variables in previous projects. So you're sort of familiar with these already, but let's talk a bit about them in terms of thinking of GML. So variables are just containers. They're containers that store some value, and those containers have a name. And in GameMaker, in GML, variables can be a couple of different kinds. They can be a number, or they can be a string. And that's it. In GameMaker, that's all they can be. As I said, there are built-in variables like x and y and speed and horizontal speed and vertical speed and direction, all of which we've used already. Let's go in now, create a second script, and this one is going to make use of some variables, but we're not using our drag and drop system. We're just going to do it on our own. Alright, I'm going to call this script hello you. So our last script just showed a message box on the screen and it said hello world. Now we're going to get a little fancy. We're actually going to collect some information from the player, and then we're going to take that information, store it in a variable, and then we're going to feed it back to the player in a message box. So let's see how all that happens. Don't forget, you need to have open and close braces. I like to just stick those in there up front. Then I'm going to define a brand new variable. In GML, the first time you use a variable in a script is when it gets defined and when you can set it. So I'm creating a new variable and I'm giving it a name, and it's a container that's going to hold on to some other information. So what is it going to hold on to in this case? Well, watch this. We're going to call a built-in function called getString, and we're going to give it a couple of arguments. Let me type these in real quick and then I'll walk through what they mean. Alright, so we are going to store in our yourname variable the result of calling this getString function with these arguments. The first of the arguments is the string that's going to show up on the screen in a message box that looks a lot like the one we did just a minute ago. And then it's got the second argument here, which is the default answer that will appear inside a text input box that will show up on the screen as well. So what the user will see is the question, "Who are you?" and there'll be a place for them to enter in their name, and there'll already be some text in there that they can delete out, and that text will say nobody. Once we have that information stored in your name, then we're going to do something very much like we did on our Hello World script. We're going to call another function, this same one we just used a minute ago, our showMessage function, and we're going to pass it a string, making sure with the first word of the string, which is hello, to leave a space after the word, because we're going to be building up a sentence using a combination of just regular old text strings and the results of the getString function, which is going to itself be a string, which is going to be the name that the user inputs. So I'm going to put in the text string hello with a space, and then I'm going to add a concatenation symbol, which is this plus sign, and then I'm going to write in your name, which is just the name of our variable, and that will have the contents of that variable, another concatenation symbol, and then another string, which is going to start off with a period. So if you think of how this works, it's going to say, "Hello, Brian," or whatever, and then it will show a period. And then we'll continue with our string by saying, "Welcome to the game." Put a close parentheses and then a semicolon to show that we've reached the end of our statement. Then to show this message box that's asking the user for their name, we need to modify our existing game file by opening up our controller object, going to the execute script action, and then just changing which script is it we're going to execute from Hello World to Hello You. And then test it out. Got our same boring looking game, and I press the space bar and I get the question, "Who are you?" It automatically fills in nobody. And if I type in my name and hit OK, then it welcomes me. "Hello, Brian Nelson, welcome to the game." I want to talk a bit about the three types of variables that are inside GameMaker. You have the default variable, that's the kind that we just used, where you simply type the name of the variable and set it equal to something. And that type of variable will work within an instance of an object, and it will be available to any of the scripts that you include that are attached to a specific object, an instance of an object. There's another kind called a local variable. In order to have a local variable, you have to use the term var, and the first time that you list the name of that variable. You're declaring it, and by using VAR, you're saying that this is going to be a local variable. It's going to be a variable that only will be seen inside a specific script. So we can see an example here. We've got our opening and closing braces showing that this is our script. We're declaring the variable your name, saying that it's local by putting VAR in front of it. And then here we're defining what's going to go into that variable initially. So we're setting the variable, same thing that we just did a moment ago, and then we're still inside the same script, so when we show the message, this will be able to read whatever the contents are of this variable. However, if we had a different script also attached to the same object, and we didn't define the variable or anything, we tried to read this information, we wouldn't be able to do it. Finally, we have a global variable. This is a variable that remains available all across the game, across objects, across rooms, the whole time. You'll be able to look to and read information from a global variable. And in order to set up a variable as global, you need to use this keyword global followed by a dot, and then name the variable, and then it works the same way. If you define it using this term global, when you look to information that's stored in that variable, you don't have to say global again. You can just list the name of it here. Now let's talk a bit about functions in GML. So I've mentioned them already, and we've seen them, and in fact we just worked with some. But what exactly are they? So functions are a part of a statement. Functions perform tasks, and functions can return a value. So functions can perform some task, and that task may result in some information being produced, a number, for example, if you do a mathematics task. The information that is produced as a result of performing that task can then be returned back to wherever it was called from. We did that just a minute ago, right? When we were looking for the name of the user, we essentially asked them for that name, and they typed that in, and then the result of them typing in their name got sent back to the caller of that function, and then we could then read that information. And for every action in GameMaker, there is a function that goes with it. So we've worked with our actions, our drag and drop actions. All of those have an equivalent GML version.